do they feel like home because they feel like home, your highest self home? Or do they feel like home because they're bringing up the home of, childhood wounds, which are connected to past life wounds? So is it the type of home that's bringing out the best in you? And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. Is this past life connection bringing out the best in you or the worst in you? Because you may love them, and trust me, I know you do. But is it bringing you towards your dharma, your soul's purpose, your fullest expression, your ultimate liberation in this lifetime? And if not, it requires immense strength, but it's the exact strength that you need, that courage that you need, that will propel you to your highest self.
He worships my body like Egyptian goddess. He is my pharaoh, for him I'm the hottest. Fingers on my skin like I'm hieroglyphics. This ain't normal love, it's some past life shit. It's some past life shit. It's some past life shit.
Welcome back to the High Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and I've been running this podcast for over 7 years because I am so passionate about making spirituality modern, fun, accessible, sexy, fun, cute. I mean, look at this mermaid outfit and mermaid hair. I just got back from Trinidad Carnival. Guys, oh my God, it's my version of Burning Man. It's more like a watering woman because it's like a lot more ass, a lot more boom, boom, boom. So I'm just like, I'm gonna keep dressing island vibe all the time, keep it real Irie up in here. And I came out of this experience, just every time I go, it's my second year going, and I'm just so jazzed up. I grew up listening to a lot of dancehall music. I had a lot of Caribbean friends, and I definitely have had a past life there. So I walked away from this carnival just feeling so reinvigorated in this past life. And if you're new to this podcast, past lives are one of my biggest spiritual inquiries. There's something that I started this podcast on, and for me have been one of the deepest lenses into understanding who I am and why I'm drawn to certain things and certain people and certain wisdom traditions. And for me, it all stems from past lives. So I polled you guys on my Instagram, which if you're not following me, go follow me at I am Sahara Rose. It's a lot of me whining and carnival costumes and also really cool, fun memes. So follow me at I am Sahara Rose. I got that link in the show notes. So I often poll you guys of what you want me to solo cast about, because these solo casts are like where we kick it, it's like where we take down our hair or maybe keep it up and just have fun and get into these different topics that I love jamming about with my friends. And so I asked you guys what you would love to get into. And something that showed up for me a lot on this trip was how to know if you had had a past life with someone. And I've done a lot of past life episodes. I'm going to link a bunch of them below, how to know if you come from certain countries, certain historical periods. But in this episode, I want to talk about how to know if you've known someone from a past life, specifically in romantic relationships. And before we drop into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. That is the best way to stay up to date on the latest episodes. We've got this in video format, so if you're just hearing my voice, be sure to also watch our fabulous outfits on video as well on Spotify, YouTube, or the Apple Store. This is the best way to stay in the flow with future conversations and also allows the podcast to reach more people. So hit subscribe so I can keep vibing with you on all future episodes. Now let's get into this one. So let's start with what is a past life. So one of my new songs on my album, I just dropped a new album, My Body is an Altar, which I'll also link below. It's called Past Life Shit. And the lyrics goes to the chorus, he worships my body like Egyptian goddess. He is my pharaoh, for him I'm the hottest. Fingers on my skin like I'm hieroglyphics. This ain't normal love, it's some past life shit. And I think that just says it all. Like when there's some past life shit, it's like, something's going down there. Like there's a draw, there's a pull, there's a magnetism, and there's often an explosion and a fire. So first of all, what's a past life? So I believe, and it's not just me, this is in many spiritual traditions from Hinduism to Buddhism to most polytheistic religions, that we are not just these like one-time humans that experience this earthly plane and die and then that's it. But rather we are souls having a human experience, and our souls go through many different lifetimes. And I love the movie Soul. It's like a Pixar movie, and they've actually done a pretty good job at depicting this. But the way that I see it is your soul chooses different lifetimes according to lessons that it wants to learn. So let's say in a lifetime, it's going to want to learn about sovereignty. So we'll often choose a family where there's a lack of sovereignty, a lack of freedom. So you go on your journey of learning how to reclaim your sovereignty, reclaim your liberation. So I believe that we often choose the microcosms of the macrocosm of the issue that we're here to solve. So for example, I grew up in a Middle Eastern family where definitely dressing like this was not the norm. But I grew up to choose that family, to choose that microcosm where it was very much focused on, you have to be smart, you have to be perfect, you should be covered up. That's what a woman does. You must be proper, you must be a wife. Being a housewife was what every woman in my family has ever done. I had to choose that microcosm because that allowed me to see that that's what I do not want. I don't ever want a man to dictate to me, okay, this is what you can do and this is what you can spend. I desire freedom and I desire expression and I desire to travel and to have true companionship and true love outside of the role mate roles that a lot of marriages and especially Middle Eastern cultures are of. Man is provider, woman is house to maker, and they don't have true relationship. And so that's why for me on this podcast, relationship and love and true intimacy is something that I care so much about because that's part of my dharma, but my past lives where I never had that. I believe in many past lives, I've had to be forced into different patriarchal roles, being a wife, being a caretaker, being the mother of ashrams. And I remember many of my past lives. So for this lifetime, I chose to be incarnated in this time with social media, with the ability to travel, with the ability to express myself because I desired liberation. So oftentimes we have uncleared karma from our past lives. When I say karma, it's like stories or debris of incomplete lessons from our past lives. So for example, a huge thing that I see, I speak a lot about public speaking. I have a course called Speak with Soul, which teaches people in 21 days to go from an awkward to confident speaker. So if you're like, oh my God, how do you just solo cast and come up with things and keep it entertaining and knowledgeable? I teach you how in Speak with Soul course. And one of the biggest blocks I see is a lot of people died in past lives around speaking their truth. So a lot of people, when it's time to go up on camera, or if you've ever, been in high school, when it's time for you to read, you're shaking and you honestly feel like you're being strangled. Likely in a past life, you died of being strangled. You died for speaking your truth. You died for sharing your experience. So you've come into this lifetime with the debris, with the memory of, it is not safe for me to speak my truth. If I speak my truth, I will literally die. And that's why even though it's not that big of a deal, you're having a bodily response that you might die. So if that's you, speakwithsoulcourse.com, I'll have that link below. So I'm going to assume you're loving this podcast. I really hope you are, but imagine how dope this podcast would be in real life. Imagine all of us listening to this podcast, hanging out, twerking up a storm, listening to spiritual teachings, putting some glitter on our faces, looking sparkly AF. Well, that's actually taking place over at the Highest Self Festival. Yes, I have created my own festival, and it's taking place on none other than 420 in Austin, Texas, which is the middle of America. Everyone can get there, and it's going to be the best day of all of our lives. We did this as a weekend last year, and now it's going to be outside, drummers, dancers. I'm going to be live performing my album, My Body is an Altar. The sacred site is me. So if you want to dance with me, learn from myself and other incredible spiritual teachers, and embody your highest self, then come to the Highest Self Festival. You can head over to highestselffestival.com to get your tickets, and I am so excited to invite you inside. Again, that's highestselffestival.com. You can find that link in the show notes, and I can't wait to dance with the altar that is you. So last year I had this dream. And it was that someone saw me on the dance floor. They watched me from behind. The way my body was rolling, it was killing them inside. They wanted to touch my temple and worship at my shrine. They said they want forever. I said, it's not the time. So I turned that into a song called Past Life Shit, which is available now on my album, My Body is an Altar. So this is music for the embodied babies. This is music that allows you to really activate your highest selves. We're working with different spiritual themes like is some past life shit and embodying self-love, glowing every hora, shaking your ass for your ancestors, and so much more. I produced all the music using Afrobeats, reggaeton, Brazilian funk, hip hop, all infused with my ancestral ancestral Persian music. So you can stream the album My Body is an Altar and specifically listen to this song that's playing in the background right now called Past Life Shit over on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to music. And be sure to also watch the music video for My Body is an Altar because it really is an art piece all about stepping into your goddess frequency. You can find that album and all the links I mentioned in the show notes, or just look them up on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to music. And I am so excited to share this frequency with you. My body is an altar. The sacred site is me. So we all have these different stories, and sometimes it's like these irrational fears that show up. Like a lot of people obviously have irrational fears of heights, snakes, spiders, things like that. Well, likely you've died of a snake bite. You've died of a spider bite. You've died being thrown off a cliff. I mean, we used to die in many gnarly ways. One of my kind of more bodily fears are veins. I'm really squeamish when it comes to blood, and for sure, I've bled out in past lives. So we bring traumas from our past lives, but we also bring gifts from our past lives. Many of us remember or have resonance with certain archetypes. A lot of us remember that goddess frequency. Maybe you were Aphrodite energy in a past life, or Cleopatra, or maybe you were a mystic or a medicine woman or a priestess or a shaman. So these types of things come more naturally to you. I have a friend that for her, she loves going through psychedelic journeys by herself and traversing the underworld realms. And she's very connected to the shadows. She is a shamaness. And for sure, she was a shaman, a medicine woman in past lives. For myself, I have the gift of oration, of ritual, of ceremony, and a leadership sense. For sure, I was a priestess in past lives. So we can see many of these archetypes, are gifts, the things that come more naturally to us, the things that we're drawn to. Maybe you were an artist, a poet, a scholar, a musician, a caretaker, whatever the things that come more naturally to you in this lifetime. No, it's not your first rodeo. Some things that it's how could you be able to do this so easily? How could you know such information? How could you, you see certain children and they're just able to hold space and listen and empathize. And you're just you're 4 years old. How are you doing this? But it's some past life shit. It's not their first time doing that. They definitely have probably been some sort of counsel in previous lifetimes. And you often see with children, they remember their past lives. We were actually born remembering our past lives. Many children will talk about them, but then your parents will tell you you're crazy or you're making it up or get back to reality. And then you forget. So there is this amnesia that happens with our past lives. And so we have to go on the journey of remembering. Now, I will link my other past life episodes that go more into it in time periods and historical context, which is about that. But I really want to get into it when it comes to love and intimacy, because I believe that that's a huge part of the equation and part of the guiding posts that are taking us to our soul's highest calling. So have you ever met someone that the moment you guys locked eyes, it's like you knew each other? It was an undescribable feeling. Something just magnetically drew you together. Maybe you met in a really weird situation, or, you were traveling or something completely out of the blue. You weren't really looking for anyone. And all of a sudden you and this person met, and it's this synergy that happens. Have you ever had that experience? It's pretty rare. It only happens a couple times really in our lifetime in big ways, though. I believe we do open up more and more to it the more that we open up to the true possibility of past lives, but it still is a pretty rare occurrence, and it will shake up your world. So what I believe is that often this is related to having past lives with people. So talking about this from a romantic context, often there is that love at first sight energy. It's you see each other and they might not even be your physical type, but it's something about them is you know them. They feel home to you, and you are just drawn to them. You're intrigued by them. You want to know everything about them. And the moment you start talking, it's this really easy flow of communication. Again, even if you come from different parts of the world, you're noticing you have a lot of similarities and patterns. Maybe you have the same synchronicities, the same angel numbers, same birthdays. A lot of synchronicities I noticed that you may have had your entire lives, that when you guys talk about them, it's whoa, how could you also have had this experience? often you feel this really big heart expansion when you're with them, especially if they were your lover in a previous lifetime, that the moment you see them, it's like you already love them. And it doesn't really make sense because you just met this person. Like, why would you love someone you don't know them? But it feels like this isn't your first rodeo. It's not your first time. And it's just the moment you see them, it's like that love is already there. So oftentimes this is when we experience a lot of chemistry, but the thing is it's quite different than just like regular chemistry. Like I think there's a lot of people you could have chemistry with, but chemistry could have many different shapes and forms. It could be sexual chemistry. It could be friendship chemistry. It could be like an intrigue. It could have many different flavors, but a past life connection, it's often not like it may have a romantic or sexual spark, but it's like, feels like your souls know each other. And it's something a lot deeper of like, I see you. And it's like a deep respect. And there often isn't that same like charge of like, I want to rip your clothes off energy, but it's like, whoa. And you take it a lot slower because you know how rare this is. And both of you are treating it with a lot of respect. So I would say it's quite different than you just meet someone. There's like this sexual chemistry, but it's this like, I've known you for 1,000 lifetimes. And often when your eyes meet, it can be really intense. It can be quite electric in your entire body. So that's how you know you've had a past life with someone. And often they may come from a culture that you have had past lives in. So let's say you definitely know you've had past lives in Egypt. Maybe they're Egyptian, or they look like an Egyptian person, or they have Egyptian tattoos, or they're drawn to Egypt or something like that. Or maybe you're very into French culture and they're French, or, they grew up speaking French. So often they'll have a connection of the time periods and the time periods that brought you together. And they may be very interested in your culture as well. So there are a lot of synchronicities. There are a lot of patterns. There's a huge magnetic pull. There is a huge feeling of home, a huge feeling of union, a huge feeling of respect. So then why aren't these people our lifelong lovers? Well, like I mentioned, past lives come with debris. They come with lessons. And in every lifetime, we learn difficult, hard lessons. And often these past life connections will repeat those patterns. And they're actually tests from the universe to see if we've learned that lesson. So let's say in a lifetime, you and this person were, a Viking and a queen in the Nordic islands. And you have this beautiful, profound love. And he was this warrior. And, he had to go off and fight for war. And you were waiting for him. And he never came back. And you were so heartbroken for the rest of your life, every day waiting by that shore, wondering if he was going to come back. And he never did. And you always wondered, did he die? Did he find someone else? Like, what happened? And you never fully moved on from that. So you came into that with this lifetime of like, I want to find my Viking king again. And maybe you meet someone and it has that level of connection. Maybe he's from Sweden or something, and you guys have that connection, but then he abandons you. And you're having this visceral response of like, he went to war and may not come back. Like, it might not even make logical sense. It's bringing up like all your anxious attachment style that you may not have even had with anyone else before, but it's like this past life memory of, oh my God, I might lose you again. So you start reacting in this specific way. However, this lifetime for you is to heal that, to not hold on to that, to not be living, waiting to see if he's going to come back and waiting if he's going to come back, but to learn how to move on with your life. So this situation may have happened to ask yourself, have I cleared this lesson, or am I going to repeat this pattern of waiting for this person who hasn't fully chosen me? Because this time he's not at war. This time he's just not texting me back. But you may create stories and excuses for him based on the past lives because you see this, oftentimes when you've had past lives, when you're seeing their highest selves. So you're seeing what they're capable of, like you are seeing them at their best, but their human selves may not be operating at that level. And especially for those of us that are empathic and spiritual women, we only see people's highest selves. It's hard for us to like really look at the humanness because we're like, damn, like I know you're capable of so much more. But that's why so many spiritual women end up with narcissists, because we overlook the red flags because we feel the goodness in their souls, but are they showing up that way? So often the split that happens in these past life relationships are related to the lesson that you're here to integrate into this lifetime. So maybe your lesson is you have consistently repeated men in your life, starting with your father of he's always working, he has no time for you. And then your ex, he's always working, he has no time for you. So you have the story of men always need to work and they don't have time for me. I'm not important enough to have his full time. But deep down in your soul, you know that's not true. And you know that you're worthy of a relationship with someone that chooses you and someone that values you and someone that's going to make the time where you're not always coming second. So maybe you meet this past life person, this is a beautiful union, but then again, they're choosing their work over you. And it's your soul saying, are we going to keep repeating this karmic cycle again and again and again for lifetimes? Or are we done with it? And then you walking away, which I will tell you is extremely hard to walk away from past life relationships because there is that like huge heart opening that is rare to find, especially in this like dating app culture, you know, that you're like, am I ever going to find someone that I feel like this? But the thing is, if they are not showing up like their past life selves, like the highest, exaltation of them, then you're just going to keep repeating the past life karma and trauma. So oftentimes these past life relationships, they have really high highs and really low lows. So you could say in like more psychological terms that it could be a trauma bond, and I don't like to minimize it to that because I think when we say something's just a trauma bond, we're saying, and I like to have my feet in both worlds, spiritual and psychological. But the thing is, when you say it's just a trauma bond, especially if you've had a past life connection, it's not that. Like, that you are bringing the best in each other and there is this deep soul connection and it's ancient and it's sacred and there's something so deep about it. It's not just like you might not even be talking about your traumas. However, if they are not showing up in a way where they are valuing you, where they are honoring and respecting you, and then you choose to stay in it, then that, my friend, is how it turns into a trauma bond. Because you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to make a quick assumption about you. Your friends come to you for advice. Whenever you're at a party, someone corners you at the side of the snack table and starts telling you all of their childhood traumas. And you actually love diving deep into spiritual topics and you have a really good way of communicating with people. So the best way to actually create a career doing this is through coaching. But I know a lot of people, they're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what type of coach I would be. So I've created a quick, easy quiz to discover your unique coaching style. So there are 3 categories: the intuitive, transformational, or empathetic coach. So the intuitive one really works with your intuition. You're able to receive downloads. You just have insights about people. The transformational one has more of that fire energy. You love to keep it real and help people go through the deepest phoenix rising from the ashes moments in their lives. And the empathetic coach really loves to listen, hold space. They're very grounded, nurturing. So if you're curious which type you are, you can try my free quiz at quiz.highestselfinstitute.com. Again, that's quiz.highestselfinstitute.com, which is my school that certifies spiritual life coaches. And you can find that link in the show notes. I'm super excited to see what type of coach you are because I'm gonna hire you one day. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. So a lot of us spend a lot of money on facials, but actually what you really need is a solid red light face mask. So Bond Charge has an amazing one that actually switches between infrared and red light in one mask. It helps with reducing wrinkles, fine lines, acne, eczema, scar tissue, relaxation, and overall gives you a gorgeous glow in just 10 to 20 minutes a day. And what's super cool about it is they cut out the eyes so you can be on your phone or watching a movie or something while getting a really solid facial in the comfort of your own home. What I specifically love about Bond Charge is they have removed the harmful circadian and sleep disrupting blue and green light from their red light mask. It has 0 EMF radiation, 0 flicker, and a super lightweight design that's easy to walk around in. They ship worldwide with really easy returns and exchanges. So you can get 15% off by heading over to boncharge.com/Sahara and using coupon code Sahara for 15% off. That's BONCHARGE.com/Sahara, and you can find that link in the show notes. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. So I don't believe it's that our trauma necessarily attracts them. There are some relationships like that, but it is a past life connection. But It's possible that you both are able to overcome and heal whatever those obstacles are and choose each other in this lifetime. I do believe our true sacred union partner, which is like the person that like is like our highest selves and their highest selves, which takes a lot of karmic relationships to actually clear out all of the residue that will make you a vibrational match for it. I believe we've also had significant past lives with those people, but that's where free will comes in. Most people will never acclimate to becoming their highest selves, let alone finding themselves in true sacred union, because it takes a lot of deep inner work. It takes a lot of being alone. It takes a lot of sitting with the discomfort. If you are going from relationship to relationship, I guarantee it will be quite impossible to find a true sacred union partner, because it's only in that singledom and that recalibration period that you do the necessary contemplation that allows, all of those underlying limiting beliefs and ancestral stories and childhood stories to come to surface in a way that if you go from one relationship to the next, you're just putting a Band-Aid over it. And for a lot of women, a lot of our deep past life traumas have been around being alone. So a lot of women, we have a really hard time being alone. For men in their masculine, I find it's much easier to be alone. In fact, a lot of men prefer being alone than to being in a relationship because, men, and I'm speaking about like heterosexual women and men who are men in their masculine, women in their feminine, so I'm generalizing here. But for most heterosexual men, their highest desire is to be in peace. So if you look at Shiva in Vedic scriptures, Lord Shiva went to the top of the mountains and he decided to just sit in sadhana and meditate and to be like in complete unity and complete just like peace and oneness. So it's really like that word alone is all one. When you are alone, you are all with the one. It's that unity consciousness within yourself. However, then Shiva felt this incredible energy coming from down the mountain. And he was like, what is that? Like, wow, this energy is like as high as mine. In fact, it's even higher than mine. He was pulled to it and pulled to it. And there was Parvati. And Parvati had been sitting in her yogic postures doing her asana practice, but from the Shakti path, the feminine path. And he was so drawn to her that he found her. And that's how they became Shiva and Shakti, masculine and feminine. And that story shows that while a man may want to be alone on the mountain forever, his Shakti will call him forward to a higher level of being that only true sacred union can. Because yes, it's one thing to be peaceful all alone, and it's a necessary step that we all need. However, I don't believe this lifetime is about you're alone in peace and I'm alone in peace and they're alone in peace. We would not co-create. We would not have a next generation. Life would cease to exist. Life is about creation, whether it is children or projects or business ideas. This all comes from collaboration. This all comes from love. And I really believe the purpose of our lifetime is to eradicate the boundaries that are keeping us from love. So the shadow of that masculine path of wanting to be alone is every single little thing that's taking him away from his peace is a red flag all of a sudden. And that's not what relationship is. In relationship, there's going to be hard conversation and there's going to be tears and there's going to be misunderstandings and it's going to be messy. And that's what love is. And, if you try to have this perfect relationship that you're always in peace and there's never any conflict, you're not going to get to the depth and core of what relationship is about. That only comes from the vulnerability and the messiness and, moving through the difficult times that I feel in our society we are so unwilling to do because we have been conditioned to be so narcissistic in our society. All of us, we Amazon everything, have it our way whenever we want. We are constantly looking at ourselves on social media. The average person looks at themselves more in one day than someone used to in like 10 years, Back in the Renaissance times, you'd be lucky if you crossed a mirror that year. You're like, oh, wow, that's what I look like. Oh, cool, bro. Now you're constantly, and it's not even what you look like. It's a filter of what you look like. It's extremely distorting. We're obsessed. I mean, I do it too. We stalk our own Instagram stories. Ladies, why are we doing this? But it's promoting this culture of self-obsession that we have to all be honest about. So everyone's going into a relationship thinking, what are you going to do for me? I'm looking for XXXX. You need to feed my da-da-da-da-da-da. And my love language is da-da-da-da-da. And if you're not matching it, da-da-da-da-da, then bye. And, the beauty of that is it's important to know your self-worth. It's important that someone's bringing value into your life for sure. However, relationship is a push and pull, and it's messy, and it has compromise, and it's never going to go exactly the way that you want, and no one's ever going to be 100% everything that you're looking for, especially when what you're looking for is going to change as you change and evolve, and as the world changes and evolves. So I believe that that's also holding us back from really diving into what is possible for us in these relationships. That Shiva could have easily stayed up on that mountain and been like, I don't know, Parvati, you seem like you're going to cost me a lot of money. You're going to want me to take you out to dinner. You're going to talk a lot. And I got the latest PlayStation up here and I got porn. So it's like, imagine it almost feels disrespectful to even give that a story but that's what the modern man has become. One of the hugest issues in today is most men are not willing to deal with a real live woman because she feels like too much. That they satisfy their sexual, cravings with pornography, which is getting more and more aggressive. Now there's VR porn, there's AI girlfriends. You can make believe a fake girlfriend that will text you and say whatever you want. People are actually doing this in Japan. It's huge right now. So they're saying, why deal with a living, breathing human when I can have my VR porn and my AI girlfriend and, mentally masturbate up here? But that's not where life is. That's not where creation is. That's not where joy is. That's not where peace, true peace is not sitting by yourself for eternity. True peace is when you know that you have given this lifetime your all. It's when you know you have shown up fully to the plate, where you didn't step away and bow out because it seemed like too much, but you went in there and you followed that joy and you followed that excitement and you followed that love. And I believe that we are so afraid of being hurt in our society that we have nyloned ourselves, nyloned our hearts, that we have this plastic, we have condoms on our hearts. We're just don't get too close because we're so afraid of being hurt because we feel like we won't bounce back from it. But if there's anything I've learned through heartbreak, is that it always makes you better. It always makes you love deeper. It always teaches you so much. And once you've experienced that, once you've experienced true heartbreak, the way I have after my divorce, you're like, if I can get through that, I can get through anything. So I'm just going to trust the intelligence of love and trust that people who are coming into my life, they're there for a reason, a season, a lesson. So if you are having someone show up in your sphere from a past life, there is a reason for that. There is a lesson there. So don't run away from it. But also, sometimes the lesson is the walking away. Step into it. It's like step into the ocean and go for a swim. And if the ocean is covered in sharks, you can always get out. But you learned, you took a dip, you experienced life. So I would say I spoke a lot about the Shiva consciousness of wanting to be alone. Now the Shakti consciousness, she wants to merge with all. She wants to dance with totality. She wants to be with the people and the community and her body and nature and food and spirit. She's in circle, hand in hand. She's weaving baskets. She's telling stories. She's singing songs. She's writing poetry. She's art. She's always doing and creating, So people always tell me, they're like, you're like modern day Shakti. You're always making something. And I'm like, thank you. And that's that Shakti energy, but it's that dance of life, it's what creates all life. So the beauty of that Shakti energy is she's always creating. She's an alchemist. She turns that bronze into gold. She turns that heartbreak into an album. She makes things happen with anything that happens in life. She sees flowers, she turns them into a bouquet. She sees ingredients, she turns it into a meal. She sees children, she starts telling them a story. She just knows how to make. She is a maker of all things, and life is her canvas. So if you consider yourself to be someone like this, an artist, a poet, a dancer, a dakini in any way, that is your Shakti energy. And Shiva is extremely drawn to this because Shiva naturally lacks that ability. Shiva consciousness really wants to watch. That's why a man, what does he love to do? He loves to sit down after a long day, watch some TV, watch some sports. Even if you go to a party, the men are sitting and watching while the women come to the center often, and they are the ones dancing because Shakti wants to be on the dance floor. She wants to be with the people. She wants to be in all the things. And the men, they find their enjoyment in sitting and watching. And they both thrive off of that. The woman loves being watched. We love being the muse. We love having his presence and his penetrative energy really just watching us down and focused on us. We crave that. Like we crave that really masculine like focus on us of like, I see you, you are my Shakti. Like that's fucking hot. And the Shiva, when he's in his highest energy, wants to be that. He wants to see her in her bliss and this, and like, I don't even understand what you're doing. And I'm just like amazed by you. And that's what we deeply desire. But then, for a number of reasons, which by the way, I am making a docuseries about the epidemic of love that we're in because, wow, guys, it's been real. I've been single for over a year. And I'm like, there is a lot here. And I've been loving jamming about this on the podcast. I'm like, I also want to interview people and dive deep. But I see like one of the biggest problems of why we don't have that is because of confusion of societal roles, of marital roles, of like, what is the purpose of all of this? Why be in a relationship? Why have someone in my life if it can take me off my path? So there are a lot of really bigger existential questions that we're sitting with right now, especially, women at large being more home or owners and often making more money than men, which is very confusing for these different relational roles. There's so many factors in it. So deep down inside, we are wanting this Shiva Shakti dance, this observer, observee, witness, muse maker, dynamic, but we're afraid. I think a lot of men are afraid of rejection. They're afraid of coming off too strong, especially with different movements. They never want to be that. So they've skewed the other way. And now there's a lot of confusion. And some men are like, well, I'm the prize, actually. I'm the prize. You should come to me. So then women are like, am I supposed to pursue the man? But it throws the roles off. And I'm not saying it has to be this way, but if you're a woman more in your feminine, you have this desire to be chosen, pursued, sought after. Like that gives you that feeling of safety that you need to open. Without that stability and that groundedness that the masculine offers, it's going to be actually impossible for you to open. This is why a lot of men, when they're like flaky, it is the biggest turnoff for us because we're like, I can't trust you. And if I can't trust you, I can't open up to you and I can't be the version of me that I want to be in a relationship. So then the women are also guarding their hearts because they're like, I've given my heart too early and too soon. I've listened to your words instead of your actions and I've had my heart broken. So I'm just going to walk away. So we're seeing both sides. We all want to love, we all want that intimacy. We all want that connection, but oftentimes we're stepping into it without doing the deeper inner healing work of why and where is this energy coming from? So coming back to past life connections, as we ascend in consciousness, we start to pick up on past lives that are more and more benevolent. So earlier on our journey, when we have those past life connections, they're often extremely karmic. That's why often, teenagers will get into really horrible, toxic relationships because you don't know how to stand up for yourself. You don't know how to speak your needs. You don't know what your boundaries are. So often it's like those really lower past lives where you had to learn like base level lessons of like respect and safety. And then maybe in college, you are picking up on there's more light and more love, but there's still this like maybe not feeling chosen or feeling valued. And it's as we do the work. It's not as you get older. Some people age and their quality of relationship does not. But what I have found in my own journey is the more I go into my subconscious and what I'm afraid of and doing that deep shadow work of just like really sitting with myself and sitting with my emotions and like just feeling them and asking them like, what is showing up for me right now? And what is under this? And like really being present with it. And I have this method that I teach at Highest Self Institute, which is my school and our embodiment certification. And it's my triple E method. The triple E stands for emote, embody, and express. So whenever I feel these emotions coming up, I first emote them. I feel them, whether it's sadness, letting myself cry, whether it's anger, letting myself feel that, whether it's grief, longing, yearning. Oh God, the feminine yearning, guys, like that feeling of like, oh, I just like so deeply want to meet my sacred union partner. Like I just want to be with him. Like it's like you miss someone you've never even met before. And, then our society says like, just keep loving yourself and we'll go away. And it's like, no, like that deep feminine yearning is so pure. It's what creates the spaciousness to allow love in. So don't kill it. But also there's a difference between yearning and loneliness. If you're yearning because you don't want to be alone, because you're afraid of how you feel when you're alone, because every time you're alone, you start to tear up, because every time you're alone, you go on dating apps to distract yourself, because every time you're alone, you text your friends, you go on Instagram. There's something there that you're escaping from. And whatever that thing is you're escaping from, you're going to end up dating, because we always date our shadows. We always date the parts of us that are unhealed because it wants to be healed. And that's how the universe works. We're drawn to the shadow because we want to come to light. So if you don't meet your shadow, you will date them and you will eventually have to divorce them. And it's not going to be as fun as just sitting with yourself and emote, embodying, and express. So that's what I love teaching about in my embodiment certification, which you can find that link below as well. So I also love sitting with the medicine of hape, which is a sacred tobacco from indigenous cultures. And for me, this is a really powerful shamanic tool that allows me to slow down and just really sit with myself in a way that, sometimes our minds are so busy, but for me, the hape just allows me to like really just like sit and ask myself these questions and like allow that spaciousness for me to like come out the other side of like, okay, I see what it was that I was running from. And yeah, taking that time to feel, especially after breakups, a lot comes up and it's our invitation. Otherwise, we're just going to keep repeating the same past life patterns again and again and again. So emote, embody, moving your body, whether you're holding on to a lot of rage, shaking it off. Somatic shaking is such a powerful practice. We have used it ancestrally for thousands of years. You notice an animal like a zebra, they're being chased by a lion and they're running away and they don't know if they're going to make it, and they cross under the banyan tree and the lion goes by them and now they're safe. And what does the zebra do? They shake the tail, feather low, I'm gonna take it low, drop your ass to the floor. They shake it off and they shake. And then all of a sudden their nervous system resets. And then all of a sudden they're just eating grass and nothing just happened. So we have the same ability. When we shake, we release somatically the traumas that we are holding on to, pent out. Otherwise, what happens is we're like in this like really intense situation. Maybe you and your situationship had a weird text breakup and you're like in that traumatic state. And then you just go on the dating app looking for the next person. You're going to be bringing that trauma to the next one. And this is why, guys, when I see like my friends type, I'm like, are you a casting director for a role? Because you keep finding the same person in another body, in another body. But that's what our subconscious is doing. It's looking to heal that thing that we're still holding on to. But if we shake it off, if we embody that thing, we give it a space to be heard. We give it that microphone. We give it that front row center so we don't have to hold on to it any longer. So I teach a lot of different embodiment practices as well. I'll put my free daily embodiment practice, which is a daily practice you can do to just really like release any stored trauma, stagnation, conflict that you're holding on to. I'll link that below as well. And then third E, express it. So for me, it started with like writing a lot of poetry. I would first it started with just journaling. Like my notes app, y'all, if y'all hack my phone and read my notes app, my life will be over. Girls and their notes app. It's freaking tornado in there. I should probably put a password on my phone. Yeah. I'm like, photos, you're good. Notes app, game fucking over. So it started with just like on my notes app. And then I was like, okay, like, then I was voice noting myself a lot. I would just go on these hot girl walks and I would just like voice note myself. And like, cause I was sending my friends voice notes a lot. I'm like, okay, let me not like voice note them every 5 seconds. So I would record voice notes with myself, just talking out whatever that thing was. And then I started to be like, let me turn this into art. So I would turn it into poems. And for making them into poems, I started making them into songs. And then for making them into songs, I started to make beats. And then for making beats, I started to compose music together. And thus, My Body is an Altar album, which is basically the story of my transformation after my divorce. So I share this with you because what happens after these often painful emotions that could come up with past life relationships is you turn them into art because they are the highest form of healing. Like there's nothing that will rock your world in the way that past life relationships will, because it's so deep. It's not your first lifetime. It's like maybe for thousands of lifetimes, this person has betrayed you. And this is the one lifetime that you say enough. And that is so powerful. For thousands of years, you may have been doing this dance and may have been in different ways. And often people we've had past lives with, we've played different roles. Maybe you were lovers in one lifetime. Maybe you were father and daughter in another lifetime. Maybe you were brother and sister in another lifetime. Maybe you were students in another lifetime. Maybe you were nuns in another lifetime. Maybe you were priests in another lifetime. There's so many different dynamics. Like oftentimes with my ex, I would be like, I feel like we were like brothers before. Like sometimes I would just have this like camaraderie energy with him, like, which was I just felt like he was my brother. For sure, we were brothers in a previous lifetime. And for sure, we were like in the Battle of Troy. Like I know that for a fact. Remembered in a past life regression. So I know right now you may be wondering, how do you know like the specifics of the past life? Okay. For me, this is something that really comes intuitively. So I have done various types of past life regressions, from quantum hypnosis healing technique, which is the Dolores Cannon method, which takes you to a very deep state of meditation. So I've done several episodes with, they're called QHHT hypnotherapists, which I'll link below, which we dive really into the method. But basically you tell your life story to them for 2.5 hours. And then they take you into a very deep meditative state that's really self-guided. And then you see what journey your subconscious takes you on, which is often related to themes from previous lifetimes as well as from this lifetime. And then you talk about it and you see parallels. So when I have done these, I've done 3 of those, and there were definitely big themes, but I also felt like it was more storylines that my subconscious was coming up with that were around my lifetime now, but I could feel like I was like a leprechaun in one. I don't know if I was a leprechaun. I was just like eating my soup in a cave. And I remember I was really annoyed because they were making a lot of sound in the parade outside. I was like, shut up, y'all. I'm trying to have my soup and my bread. I'm a leprechaun. So I don't know if that was real. Maybe I was the angry Lucky Charm. But I'm going to assume that one I made up. I don't know why I went there. But another one, I was like this like figure skater, but like no one came to my final performance. Could have happened. But then there were other past lives that were like super real. And what's interesting for me when I've done, I'll start with quantum hypnosis healing technique. It's often past lives that are not glamorous. Everyone was a Jesus in their past life. Everyone was Cleopatra. Everyone was, Nefertiti. But like, let's be real. Like if we've had tens of thousands of past lives, like we could not have all been the ish in all of them, like we've all been peasants. If you're doing good right now, you've probably done some bad. So, I mean, at this point, I know dozens, if not hundreds of my past lives. So yes, some of them came from quantum hypnosis healing technique. For example, there was this one lifetime in Egypt where I was a peasant in Egypt. And I remember when you're going through it, they take you to the happiest day of your life. And I remember the happiest day of my life was I saw a part of the Sphinx go by the desert. And I was just so happy to have seen a part of that. And then I died of like pneumonia. I think it was pneumonia. I was shivering. I was so cold and sick. And I was with my husband, and we had our noses nose to nose, and we were like shivering and shaking and just trying to keep our breath together. Like I'm going to start literally crying to keep each other warm. And we just died. And, after I felt really sad about that lifetime, and she was like, why do you feel sad? And I'm like, nothing happened. Like my life was so simple. She's like, why does that make you sad? And I'm like, because my life is so full now. But it's almost like I've had so many lifetimes where like nothing happened, That's probably most of our lifetimes. If you were a peasant, if you were a farmer, like not much happened in your lifetime. You probably went like a square 20-mile radius ever. And so oftentimes we choose these lives that are very full. And sometimes I'm like, wow, there's so much happening in my life. Like I can't even keep up with it. But I'm like, because for so many lifetimes, I never had that. So that's one way. There are other forms of past life regression. There's a great book called Many Lives, Many Masters with the psychologist, Columbia educated one, that he started to realize people under hypnosis would go into it. So that's a good book to learn about. But to be honest, truth be told, most of my past lives have not come from past life practices, but it has come from my own gnosis. Gnosis meaning self-knowledge. So I would say a lot of it comes from when I see someone, okay, we'll talk about it from a romantic sense. Often it's like features about them that will remind me of something. Like they'll look like a pharaoh to me, like something about their soul, their stature, the way that they carry themselves. I'm like, okay, I was the queen and you were in the pharaoh and you abandoned me at the throne. And I saw how that played out. And like, I can just, it's this deeper feeling, like there's patterns, and then your mind is able to like put together the pieces of the puzzle. I've often felt based on the dynamic, like especially with friendships, like certain friends, you totally had past lives with friends, like certain friends you like drop in so easily. Like, I have a friend of mine, and when we're together, we are laughing, we are silly, we are just the most like playful, like wild girls, but we're both very into like healing trauma and depths. And like for sure, her and I past lives, like, I believe we had extremely traumatic, to be honest. It was probably related to something around like sex trafficking, is the vibration that both of us have felt. And in this lifetime, we're like, we're going to find each other and we're going to be free and we're going to be liberated and we're going to be expressed and we're going to be sovereign. We're going to choose ourselves. So often you've had these really darker past lives. I know a lot of women, especially in the spiritual space, who feel they've had past lives in sex trafficking, in slavery. For sure, I've been a slave in many past lives. When I went to the South and I saw those staircases, my soul knew it had been there before. And oftentimes, too, our past lives are related to our ancestors. So a lot of us, we reincarnate in our own ancestry. So I know that I've been multiple of my ancestors before, and I see the patterns of the patriarchy of not being able to choose for yourself, and me in this lifetime really choosing that. So we've had past lives in different parts of the world that we're drawn to, but also in our own lineage. So often I find, what is the lesson that's being played out? What familiarity is there? What culture is this person from? Where is it bringing me? What is it awakening inside of me? What is the vibration? Where is it guiding me to? And often if you start asking yourself these questions, it may feel a little bit like you're making it up, because there is a level of imagination that's required. But the thing is, where is your imagination coming from? Like where imagination is coming from somewhere, right? So there's a very different energetic signature of we were samurais in Japan versus we were, shamans in the Mayan or Aztec Empire. Like those are very different frequencies. So what frequency are you picking up on? There's a very big difference between, we were past life lovers that were like swept away, and we were past life like enemies, and I was forced to marry you. Very different energy there. So it's like often it's this way that you feel that's undescribable. It doesn't even really make sense based on the dynamic, but the dynamic is playing out the microcosm, smaller roles of this. Maybe things they say are like, they wouldn't make sense to say that unless there was this bigger context of things. And sometimes it's only one of you remembers the past life connection. Often it is the more intuitive person. For me, I very quickly can recognize past life connections, and other people can. I sometimes don't even tell people. So they may not have a remembrance of it. And the past life may have been you trying to save them, you trying to heal them, and they were not receptive to it. So are you going to do that dance again of trying? There's no point in trying to tell someone like, we've had a past life. You're going to just sound crazy. Let's be real. You're going to sound crazy. It's just for you to know that what's happening right now is larger than you. This is a multi-lifetime thing. And the reason why often it is extremely triggering, traumatic, and hard to walk away from is because it's not your first time. This has happened again and again and again. But a lot of us are choosing in this lifetime to end these patterns of abuse, betrayal, shame, toxicity, patriarchy, not speaking our truth, not living our highest selves. A lot of us right now are saying enough, but that pull is so strong because there is such a strong sense of familiarity. So Do they feel like home because they feel like home, your highest self home? Or do they feel like home because they're bringing up the home of, childhood wounds, which are connected to past life wounds? So is it the type of home that's bringing out the best in you? And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. Is this past life connection bringing out the best in you or the worst in you? Because you may love them, and trust me, I know you do. But is it bringing you towards your dharma, your soul's purpose, your fullest expression, your ultimate liberation in this lifetime? And if not, it requires immense strength, but it's the exact strength that you need, that courage that you need that will propel you to your highest self. And I find that often it is saying no to these karmic relationships and ending that cycle. It's like the trampoline that we needed, that you go down and you come soaring up in a way that nothing else could have. And you become that version of you that you would have been incapable of becoming without having this experience. So don't shame yourself if you were in a past life karmic relationship. That needed to happen. Likely there was a soul contract there that said, we're going to do this dance, but it's going to be your free will that chooses whether you're going to walk away or not. So if you're in it right now, you're teetering and you can feel, oh, there's some past life shit and I need to walk away from this. Know that, yes, it's going to be an uphill battle because your soul is so used to merging with this person, but everything that you've ever wanted is on the other side. And if this past life relationship is bringing out the best in you, or maybe there is some conflict, but you're both willing to work on it and learn about it, and you're both, it really has to do with the level of reciprocity here. So I'm not saying all past life relationships are negative. In fact, I do believe our highest form of relationship, a true sacred union partner, you've had past lives with, but it was extremely empowering past lives. There is going to be that fear and that shit, but the more we do that inner work within ourselves, the less we actually have to do it within the relationship. And you're never going to be a 100% healed, 100% healed, but it's like instead of showing up 30% healed and 40% healed, and there's 70 to 60% of work to do together, which will likely bring you apart, can you show up at 80% and 80%? And then there are going to be some obstacles inevitably that show up. There's always going to be compromise. There's always going to be push and pull, especially when our society is extremely individualistic and narcissistic and not conducive for relationship. However, it's how badly do we want this? Do we want this to work? And often when there is that true past life bond, it calls us and draws us to become that person in a way that nothing else would have. That you're looking face to face with your shadows and your triggers and you're fucking scared and you want to walk away, but you're like, I know that the person I want to be is on the other side of stepping through these fears. And there's a difference between the fears that are propelling you and making you your worst, most anxious version of you, and the fears that are up-leveling you into your most mighty self. And that's when you know that's a sacred union love, that it's bringing you closer to both of your highest selves and then a collective highest self. Because I believe the highest, the siddhi of relationship, the highest gift of relationship is dharmic, is to create something that is greater than the both of you. So it is to come together to create projects, books, docuseries, music, children, cities, schools, natural resource, who knows? Allow the synergy of the two of you to inform what that will become. But that will often take going through this dance, facing your fears. For sure, if anyone says, oh, me and my partner have never fought, likely that's not a true sacred union relationship. Because if you've never fought, that means you never really cared. So in true sacred union relationship, it's going to bring up your shit and it's going to bring up your triggers. But the difference between that and these like really toxic, like twin flame relationships a lot of people talk about is those are extremely codependent. You can't focus on your work anymore. They're taking you to a downward spiral. You're self-isolating or bringing up all of your trauma and you're getting lost in it. And most of all, it's taking you away from your path. Whereas sacred union, sometimes it moves slower. Sometimes it's not super sparky. Sometimes you don't have chemistry with that person from the get-go. It takes time. Maybe they were just in your orbit for a really long time. You were friends. You just got to know each other and you witnessed them and and it just started to grow and grow until both of you have learned the lessons to come into harmonization with one another. So often those like love at first sight, like, who are you? Stop. Those often burn just as fast. It's a wink from the universe of, okay, you're in your right path, but don't get swayed by this either. But often the true sacred union, and I am not in sacred union relationship, but I can feel the energetic frequency of it is like a lot of patience. And we don't do that well in our society, but it takes a patience in the unfolding of it. It takes a trust. It takes an unraveling. Because if that really is true sacred union partnership, it is for a lifetime, and you can't jump into something like that. And, and you wouldn't want to, because you wouldn't want to go into it prematurely and not be able to hold it. So these past life karmic relationships are often burning away the karma that is necessary if we are able to navigate them, choosing our highest selves and choosing true love, capital L love, not just the codependent toxic love, but capital L almighty love. Then we can have these loverships that awaken us, that give us these codes. Sometimes you need to have these loverships to bring you to certain places, remind you of certain things, open up certain pathways, open up your heart and show you that you can love again, So I'm not saying only sacred union or bust. Sometimes you need these people along the way. But it's a matter of knowing when that timeline is complete. We stay into it for too long. They say women stay into a relationship for too long. Men leave relationships too prematurely, which I would say is fucking facts. As women, we think, well, I'm going to change them. They're going to become their highest self version one day. And men are like, I don't know, this is starting to get a little uncomfortable, or that Insta-baddie looks better over there, and let me just move on. So it's knowing when the timeline is complete and then learning the lessons, sitting in your aloneness, allowing it to integrate so you can come into that past life with someone where you were like, we're going to find each other in this lifetime and bring out the best in one another. And we're going to make fucking magic, and we're going to create art, and we're going to create children, and we're going to create community, and we're going to really see and celebrate one another. And that, I believe, is possible for every single person, but it's not instant. It's not, you swipe to the next one, let me find sacred union. It's not. It's the hero's journey. And it takes time, it takes patience, it takes unraveling, and it takes continually recommitting and recommitting and recommitting to your heart. And sometimes we need those seasons of celibacy, of being in our aloneness and being in our sovereignty to not carry the energetic cords of other people. I'm such a huge proponent of celibacy because it allows you to just be in your own energy, because when you are exchanging sexual energy with someone, you're bringing on their karma, you're bringing on their other lovers, you're bringing on everything else that you don't quite see is in the picture. And then you are producing oxytocin and bonding with that person, especially if you know they're not your long-term person. It could just delay the timeline split. It needs to split, but you're attached. Or, for a lot of women, for whatever reason, we already know you can't leave the D. We don't want that for you. We want you to be sovereign, be clear, so you can learn the lesson just through a glance. You can learn that lesson through a dance. You can learn that lesson through a conversation without having to be in relationship with this person for 2 years. And then the more you can clear out the karmic debris from these past life connections, the faster you can step into your true sacred union partnership and live out the highest timeline that all of your past lives have been building you up for. All of the knowledge, all of the wisdom, everything you've learned in previous lifetimes have been awaiting for this moment for you to be in your highest exaltation with your divine counterpart. And that is truly why we are here. So, let me know if you liked this episode. Please share it. This is a really great way to start a conversation. Share with your partner, share with your friends. It can really deepen our level of intimacy with people. And if you want to have these kind of conversations with people that you're dating, send them this conversation. If they're just like, ew, I can't, I don't do love, I only do situationships. It's like, don't fucking waste your time. Don't waste your time, because life is short and love is everything. True love. So if you loved this episode, please leave a review for it in the iTunes store, and I will send you a free gift, which is my womb meditation. Now, this is a meditation to allow you to connect to your source of inner knowing in the feminine, your sacred womb space. So in 8 minutes, you'll be able to ask your womb any questions and receive guidance. So all you got to do is leave a review when you go to the podcast app on your phone or on your computer. Leave a review. Let me know what other topics you'd love for me to dive into. I love answering your questions. So leave a review. Tell me what you loved about this podcast. It really helps spread the word, get on more incredible guests, and raise the vibration of the planet. And then take a screenshot before sending it over and email it to me at Sahara at iamsahararose.com. That's Sahara at iamsahararose.com. You can find that email and all the links I mentioned in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sure we've known each other in some past lives. Be sure to tune into my new album, My Body is an Altar. You can find that link below. My favorite song on the album is called Past Life Shit. So I'm gonna play that song right now for you guys so you can vibe to it a little bit, but it's such a good, it's like this dream that I actually had. It's not even a real story, but it was like this dream I had of meeting someone on a dance floor and you just knew is some past life shit. So I hope you love it and I hope you tune into the next one. Please sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can stay up to date with new episodes. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in and I'll see you in the next one.
He worships my body like Egyptian goddess. He is my pharaoh, for him I'm the hottest. Fingers on my skin like I'm hieroglyphics. This ain't normal love, it's some past life shit. It's some past life shit. It's some past life shit. He see me on the dance floor, he watched me from behind. The way my body rolling, it's killing him inside. He wanna touch my temple and worship at my shrine. He said he want forever, I said it's not the time.
She said it's not the time, but baby you're so fine. This life is not forever, mommy gotta be mine. Esses olhos me fascinam, todo dia tão vai. Baby this is sign, pra sempre vou te amar.
He worships my body like Egyptian goddess. He is my pharaoh, for him I'm the hottest. Fingers on my skin like I'm hieroglyphics. This ain't normal love, it's some past life shit.